This story from the Washington Post from Sunday. A meat inspection program that the Agriculture Department plans to roll out in pork plants nationwide has repeatedly failed to stop the production of contaminated meat at American and foreign plants that have already adopted the approach, documents and interviews show. That's comforting.
Hey, what happened?
The program allows meat producers to increase the speed of processing lines by as much as 20% and cuts the number of USDA, DA, and safety inspectors at each plant in half, replacing them with private meat inspectors employed by meat companies. Why might that be a problem?
I really have no idea.
I mean, if you're working for the guy who is interested, or gal, who is interested in speeding up your lines and not getting bogged down in this whole thing about fecal matter in your beef, that may end up being your job number one. Just make sure that the beef gets rolled off the lines quicker. The approach has been used for more than a decade by 5 American hog plants under a pilot program. But 3 of those plants were among the 10 worst offenders in the country, with serious lapses that include failing to remove fecal matter from meat, according to a report this spring by the USDA Inspector General. The plant with the worst record by far was one of the 5 in the pilot program. In these cases, contaminated meat did not leave the plants because it was caught by government inspectors once it reached the end of the processing line. Well, let's get rid of those guys too and put some private inspectors in there so that this meat can roll off those conveyor belts quicker. But federal officials consider this too late in the process and repeatedly cited the plants for serious safety failures. While the inspection procedures are still in the experimental stage, the USDA has allowed other countries to use a process deemed to be equivalent in plants producing red meat for export to the United States. Within the past 2 years, plants using the procedures in Canada and Australia have experienced a rash of problems. That's according to emails, letters, and other documents. For example, a Canadian beef processing plant using the inspection system had to recall 8.8 million pounds of beef and beef products tainted with E. coli, about 2.5 million pounds of which went to the U.S. market. Now, I know my libertarian friends would say, why not just put the fact that this meat is more likely than other meat to contain E. coli, therefore we're giving you a 20% discount. Isn't that the Milton Friedman suggestion that he gave about the pintos? Look, you got a 20% more chance of getting E. coli. We're going to give you a 25% discount on the beef. You can roll the dice. Since the beginning of last year, 11 shipments of beef, mutton, and goat meat from at least 4 Australian plants using the procedures were stopped at U.S. ports because of contamination, which included fecal matter and partly digested food, records show. Those of you who are listening live during lunch, I hope you're having a cheese sandwich. USDA officials have told federal auditors that the agency plans to complete its evaluation of the pilot program by the spring and hopes after that to propose rules for expanding the inspection system nationwide. Excuse the pun, but I think that puts the cart before the horse. Dozens of chicken plants have also been enrolled in a similar pilot program. These new meat inspection programs dates to 1997 when the USDA announced it would allow 5 large hog plants to enroll in the Hazard Analysis and Critical Control Point-Based Inspection Model project, commonly referred to as HIMP. This, of course, was a function of heavy lobbying by the meat industry. In a separate report issued this month, the Government Accountability Office said it would be difficult to recommend that experimental procedures be extended across the country based on the pilot program. I'll say.
You notice how all of these proposals that libertarians will say to you, ultimately, the types of policies they're pushing will make big business somehow more accountable because they won't be able to collude with governments. But why is it that big business is always pushing for libertarian proposals if it actually threatens them?
What's that? Oh, you're saying,
I'm saying, like, every time libertarians are like, well, really, business will be
well,
more accountable without regulation. But it always seems like libertarian proposals are always lobbied for by big corporations.
well, that's because they care about the greater society. It may be more onerous on them, but these industries really, at the end of the day, care about society more greatly.
I hadn't thought of it that way before.
Although, the idea is that they're acting in their own best interest, and that's going to bring about a greater societal benefit. I don't know. It gets a little bit complicated, I guess, once you start getting into the weeds or into the.
It goes from exhausting to really literally nauseating.